Hello everyone. So today we are covering two very simple concepts. How do we communicate well in the digital age? How do we communicate in a way that people understand and absorb even if they don't agree with us? Well, visuals and stories. So we're going to explore theory and practice. Previously, we've explored inquiry leading to learning. We've explored problems leading to solutions. Today, we're going to look at theory leading to practice. And we're looking at theory and practice in these two areas. Communicating to digital audiences through visuals, and why communicate through visuals. We're going to look at the dual coding theory and communicating research information through stories that connect with the human experience and that translate data for wider audiences. Stories and visuals will be a big part of the assignments for this unit. So the first project will be to present a quantitative research paper as a poster with a story-like narrative and complementary visuals and graphs. And this will be done individually. You'll go look up a research paper based on the various requirements. You are to turn that into a poster, but not just a poster with information. To do well, you have to turn that poster into a story that connects with the human experience and uses visuals and graphs such as different types of charts that convey the quantitative numerical information in an interesting and engaging way. Your second project will be to design, present, and carry out a survey to collect quantitative data about a specific problem that university students face, and you'll be doing this in groups of 2 and 3. The final project will be individual, and you'll use the information from project 2 to create an infographic and a report to communicate your findings and solutions. You will be using visuals and graphs as well. What we can do is put into practice the connectivist learning theory that we discussed the first week about knowing how and where to find information, and this being an essential 21st century skill. Therefore, as this unit centers around quantitative research and quantitative capabilities, I would like you to research and develop a conceptual understanding of what quantitative research is. Therefore, an activity for you this week will be to look up an academic site or research method book. Now, I would like you to look for the difference between quantitative versus qualitative research. Firstly, you have the information on the page. What does it say? What does the book or the research method site say? You can look up more than one of these and you can put these quotes together. Now, take several of these explanations, think about them, conceptualize them. How would you express this in your own words? If you were to draw a little chart about it, if you were to illustrate this concept using visuals and words or using only words, how would you do that? Take notes, whether they be visual notes or textual notes, and create your own representation of this very simple concept, the difference between quantitative and qualitative research. Then we will discuss and compare and contrast and work on them this week in the tutorial. There are 2 books that I'm going to recommend for this unit as kind of readings for this week as well. Cool Infographics is a book that's going to help you immensely throughout the unit for all your assignments and projects, particularly the first and the third, talking about effective communication with data visualization and design. The second book has one chapter about dual coding theory, which we will be discussing today, which is how visuals aid memory, how we think and remember things both in visual terms, visual memory of pictures and images, and textual memory of words. Both of these books are available on the Monash Library, and there will be links and more information on the Week 2 lecture page. So here we have a bit of nonsense. We have a giant wall of text and we have an infographic. Both actually don't have any information worth reading, but if we were to think about how we absorb information best, how we remember things as human beings, which one comes more naturally? Which one do you find more appealing? Now, human beings are attracted to certain things because of our biological nature. You can say, like, it's a survival instinct to be able to spot certain things in the wild, to spot certain colors. Red reminds us of food, and therefore we are attracted to, our eyes are drawn to the color red. And so we're very naturally visual, and visuals do communicate to us something. And therefore, we should ask ourselves, as dual coding theory asks, what role does visual information play in learning and education, and how our brains retain information? What role can visual learning play in enhancing our understanding, our memory, conceptualization? Take advertising, for example. What actually works on the internet? What connects with people? Obviously not just a bunch of words like the first picture. You kind of need something more, and advertising is built around what actually catches people's attention and sticks even in their subconscious memories. I'll basically give you guys a couple of options for learning about dual coding theory. The basic concept will be discussed in the video after this, and in the slide after that, I will put a link to a YouTube video by a professor who explains it in more detail. You don't really need to understand the entire science of it, though it can be very helpful and it might provide useful strategies, especially understanding why we're doing this unit in this way and why the assignments are in this way. But to just start out with, I thought I'd use this visual, and it simply says that we combine a picture, for example, a picture of a laptop on the left with words, the word laptop on the right. One summarizes and one describes. So we take in this information with our eyes in two different ways, and we look for links between them. Finding links between pictures and words helps with our learning and memory. So a visual representation of words in different forms of text, different sentences, phrases, paragraphs, explanations, all of these help us remember things. So to apply it, when you have a lot of links between ideas and words and pictures, whether in studying, in revising, in working out concepts, in trying to remember something, in processing things, these help us learn better. And it's not just learning as well, it's also communicating, getting information across, advertising or reaching out to people on social media. There are many practical applications of this theory. So go ahead, look at the slide after this and the slide in 2 slides after, and see how you want to try to get an understanding of this concept, because it can be pretty helpful for you throughout this unit. Now, I definitely recommend looking this book up on the Monash Library. It's available online as well. And the part that we will be looking at is page 112 to 114. So not many pages at all. And it's very well illustrated because this book is about how people learn best. And one of the ways in which we learn best is when information is presented well, verbally and visually. So we're going to look at dual coding theory. Dual coding theory is a simple theory that explains why pictures are useful in learning. Pictures are generally remembered better than words and can provide an additional memory cue. So that's helpful for us to remember. So let's highlight that. So this is something to look out for. It's a very easy to understand chapter. Dual coding is the process of combining verbal materials with visual materials. Pictures are often remembered better than words, and dual coding theory is the idea that when we combine text information and visual information, our learning is enhanced because we process verbal and visual information through separate channels. So basically, it's sort of like imagining that we process verbal information in one channel and visual information in another. And therefore, when we use both in learning, we sort of have a greater effect. It's more effective, it's more interesting, it catches us, it engages more of our brain. So some of the examples of this include infographics, comic strips, diagrams, graphic organizers, which are basically a type of diagram, and timelines, which again show you how something progresses over time. Visual dual coding is different from learning styles because learning styles basically is an outdated debunked theory that says some people learn best visually and some people learn best through listening. Some people learn best through words or through hands-on activities. It doesn't work like that. Dual coding theory rather applies to everyone. Regardless of your preference, we tend to learn better when we combine different types of modes of learning, such as hands-on learning, auditory learning, visual learning. Everyone benefits from better visual learning. Basically, for example, if you were learning about cells, just reading a whole bunch of text is not going to explain it very well. Whereas we have something like this, it can help us remember all these different parts of a cell and how they function better. So that's a huge advantage. Here we go. And here it says we should give all students a relevant diagram and relevant verbal information. So that's good to know as well. It's a good explanation. The theory itself has some complexity, but it's basically a very simple idea, which is that we learn well when we have visuals, and we can communicate quite effectively with visuals as well. Right. And so there are some caveats with that, in that visuals have to be done well. Any picture should be relevant to the concept. It's not just decorating the page with lots of irrelevant pictures that, they capture our brains. Yes, they capture our eyes and our memory, but they distract us. Being distracted can hurt our learning and our ability to remember something. So it must be meaningful. If it's not meaningful, we'll overload our brains with too much information. It's like strolling through Instagram. You're not going to learn something very well, having all this different information in your face. So for us as learners, as communicators, this is something to bear in mind, and we're going to talk about the application of this in our unit in the subsequent slides. So the first assignment for this unit is an academic poster. And you might be thinking, well, what is that? Maybe some of you haven't been to academic conferences. I haven't personally, but some of these conferences have poster presentations. Now, you may notice that some of these posters are more well designed than others. Some incorporate more visual elements, while others may be a little bit like big chunks of text. And so we're not looking for something that maybe has a huge chunk of text just presented just like that, but we are looking for something that presents the various aspects of a piece of research. For example, this one here has the research aims, the context, the various methods used, the findings, and so forth. So we're looking for this level of information conveyed, but we're looking for good visual design as well. And the audience for your own study won't be academics and researchers, it will be fellow college students. So keep that in mind as well. But I just wanted you guys to see that academic research is not only presented in books and papers, but also in avenues like this and in visual form. So this is something legit that you might actually use, skill that you might find very helpful should you go into academia. Now this one is very, very interesting because it really incorporates visuals in a very integrated way. So that's cool. All right. So now we've covered the why. Why present information visually? Why go through all that effort to translate something and think through the concept so you really can represent it well in visual form? Now, I've often talked about visual abstracts or comic cartoon abstracts of academic research in previous units. But if you have not encountered the idea, it's simply the idea of taking an academic paper and turning it into a comic type story and presenting just a few basic facts to get people interested in your publication. I asked the previous class, which would you rather read, a comic abstract or a normal journal article? You know, it's all words basically, with a few images and graphics here and there. Generally, most would say that they prefer to read a comic abstract because it's just more interesting. But if you really think about it, to represent a piece of writing in a visual form, such as to create a video animation or a comic, takes so much thinking and planning to do well. It's actually harder to do because you are essentially doing a lot of work for your readers and your audience. You're also representing your complex ideas in more understandable ways to enhance understanding. Something that I will encourage you to aim for with your poster presentation is storification. This is something that's an added level of challenge. It is in the rubrics for assignment 2. But here are some of the benefits and why communicating with stories is effective, according to research. First of all, you attach meaning to learning. You make information more comprehensible, relatable, and relevant. You increase retention. You engage. And this is useful not just in learning, but also just online and offline in a variety of different contexts. You communicate to your audience in a way that really engrosses them, like really immerses them. You can encourage them to be more creative. They can absorb the information better. They retain and they're overall more motivated and enjoy the process better. Let's start by talking about what not to do. Here's an example of a terrible data visualization, and there's a link to a very, very interesting Tumblr page with awful, badly designed, difficult to understand visualization. So, not all visualization is good. It takes a significant amount of effort and planning to make something that is logical, that is effective, and almost it's better not to do visuals if you're not going to do them well. It actually is a greater challenge.